evening in which we get to honor some of our greatest pioneers in social work. I'm so thrilled to be able to start this program and to see all of you. It is such a great pleasure, and it means so much to our profession of social work to honor the people that have given so much and to restore the information for history. And this is more than just an honoring program. It's getting information on the internet and available to students. It's also a history project. And to tell you more about it, first I want to introduce the members of the committee that are here. And if you would wave your hand or stand one or the other when I call your name. Francis Capel, Ben Cuellar, Suzanne Dworak-Peck, where did you go? Oh, there, way up there. Joe Nunn, Monica White, and Jan Lee Wong. And if you will look, you see on your program that there are a number of other people on the committee that has worked very hard. And now I'd like to introduce Monica White, who was one of those who helped to get this started, has been the chair in the past, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about the archives.
Good evening. This is such a pleasure to look out here and see all of you. It's just great. We appreciate your coming because it really supports what we want to do, which is remember those who came before us and were so important to the field, and those who are what I call living legends, who are still with us, and we want to be sure that they get the recognition that they deserve. The California Social Welfare Archives is a group that's been operating for about maybe 25 or more years at USC, and our function really is to collect and preserve the social welfare history of the state of California. We do this in a number of ways. One way that we work is to collect materials from a variety of organizations that still are operating and organizations that are no longer operating, or people's collections that have to do with historical information about any part of social welfare. We also conduct oral histories with individuals, and we have a collection of roughly 100, maybe a few more, of people that we have interviewed and from whom we can learn a lot. All the materials of the archives are stored in our main library at USC and are available for people doing research. Mostly we get scholars who want to find out about some part of history and will come to us. But anybody can come and take a look. There are a few people here from the board of the California Social Welfare Archives, so we're going to do the same thing. Our chair, Esther Gillies, oh, you're way over there, just give a wave. Francis Feldman is here, John Cully, David Kuroda, Francis Capel, who have I missed? Oh, Heather Halpern, and myself. So what we would like to do is just give you a little bit of information about the people that are being inducted this year. And several of us are going to get up here and just say a little bit. We really hope that you'll look at the board. There's more information. Get online, social work hall of distinction .edu, and you can read up on all 55. There's 55 this year people that we have inducted so far in the last 6 years. And then we hope that we know that some family members or friends are here to accept the award for the inductees. And so we're going to ask you to come over here to my left, where Ellen is going to be giving the award. So, Joe Nunn will start.
Well, good evening. It's good to see you all here. I have the distinct honor and privilege of introducing the first inductee, Dr. Nathan E. Cohen. And I'd like to thank Dr. Alex Norman for the nomination. Nathan E. Cohen grew up in the Boston area and graduated from Harvard University, where he went on to receive his PhD in experimental psychology in 1934. Throughout his lifelong pioneering career, Dr. Cohen sought to professionalize social work and bring scholarship to social work education. Describing social work as humanitarian in search of a method, humanitarianism in search of a method, he worked to pull together psychiatric and sociological branches of the field. Anybody that knows social work knows that when you try to bring together these different branches, that's a real challenge. He urged social workers to help individuals and also improve societies. Dr. Cohen became professor at UCLA School of Social Welfare in 1964. The same year, he was elected president of the National Conference of Social Welfare. He launched a doctoral program in social work at the school and served as a dean before retiring from the university after 15 years. By the way, I was fortunate enough to have him as a professor during my first year of the MSW program. While dean, he greatly increased minority representation among both students and faculty. After retiring from UCLA, he moved to Berkeley, where he and his wife Sylvia were among the founders of the Association for Lifelong Learning. His enormous capacity for bringing people together with disparate interests was constructive and made a big difference in our profession. His chief such accomplishment was the creation of the largest organization of professional social work in the world, the National Association of Social Workers. In 1955, he became its first president. So it is again an honor to introduce Dr. Cohen, and I'd like to now bring up his daughter, Susan Cohen, to say a few words.
Thank you very much. I'm really thrilled to be here, and although Joe just whispered to me as it came up, you have 3 minutes to talk. The first I knew I was going to be talking. One story that didn't make it on that board I just wanted to share with you. My father got his PhD in 1934 from Harvard in psychology, and because at that time Harvard did not hire Jews as professors, instead, they gave him a year-long traveling scholarship to Europe. And he and my mother spent their first year of marriage mostly in Italy in 1934. And it was as my father was looking out the hotel window on Mussolini's black shirts gathering down below that he said to himself, that he didn't want to spend a lifetime running rats through mazes and laboratories. He wanted to do something that had to do with bringing people together in the world and making a change in the world. And that was really social work for him was community organization, it was public policy, it was trying to make a difference. My dad died in 2001, just about the time that George Bush was taking office, and I think I'm safe with a crowd of social workers in saying that we thought he didn't want to live under a Republican president. Anyway, thank you so much. He was very honored.
Okay, our next inductee is Kurt Reichert. Do we have the person who nominated Kurt here tonight? Okay, let me say a few words about him. National leader and former dean of San Diego State University School of Social Work, Dr. Reichert was a driving force in the field of medical social work education. Born in Austria, he pursued social work after leaving his Austrian homeland in the late 1930s on the heels of the Nazi invasion. So kind of a connection here. He became a U.S. citizen in 1943. He received a BA in 1940 from Charlton College, Northern Minnesota, and an MA from the University of Chicago School of Social Work in 1946. He received his PhD in 1955 from the School of Social Work in the University of Minnesota with a minor in public health. Wow, impressive. Dr. Reichert was a strong supporter of civil liberties and social justice. His career reflected these beliefs, more importantly, during the civil rights movement. While president of NASW, he convened a 3-day human rights assembly that included association board members, state chapter leaders, and staff. Participants met with President Lyndon Johnson at the White House. At that momentous meeting, they presented the NASW call to action, which supported the Civil Rights Bill. Now, Dr. Reichert, if you read the number of things that he has done, when they said he had a diverse career, it really was diverse. He worked in a number of fields and is to be respected for his contributions that he made to the profession. Do we have any of his family members here by any chance? Please give a round of applause to Dr. Kurt. Thank you.
It's my honor to present the next person and induct him into the Hall of Distinction. Jim Karls was one of the founders of the Hall of Distinction and has been one of our leaders, but also one of those who's bugged us along the way to make sure we did what we should do. Jim has a wonderful long career. Probably his most lasting, one of his more lasting accomplishments was his writing of Person and Environment, a classification system for social functioning, along with Care and Laundry. And that publication has been translated into 8 languages and used extensively in a number of countries, including France, Canada, Australia, Japan, Korea, Greece, and South Africa. Jim is persistent, and when he has a cause, and he continues to work on that until it's accomplished. And certainly PI is one of those things. In addition to that, he was employed at the Bureau of Social Work in the 50s to start the first mental health clinics in the Central Valley of California. Later on, he was the director of the Center for Community Psychiatry in Los Angeles and the director of training and research for the California Department of Mental Health. Jim has a MA from the University of Chicago School of Social Service and his PhD from the University of Southern California. He was president of the Golden Gate chapter of NASW and at the time when they were very active against the Vietnam War. He was later president of the California chapter of NASW. I thought he'd been president of a couple of other chapters too, but I guess that wasn't true. But what?
Santa Barbara chapter.
Santa Barbara unit, yes. He organized several smaller units within the state, I know that. He has taught various places, including the University of California, Berkeley, and UCLA, and Santa Barbara, and San Francisco State, and Long Beach. So he's been very active in teaching new social workers. He also is very proud that he chaired the National NASW Committee that wrote the first standards for case management. So those are a few of the accomplishments of Jim Karls. And I believe his wife Diane is here to give us his words.
Okay, I'm going to be reading his remarks. I love the profession of social work, which gave me the opportunity to do the work I wanted to do. When I came back from the Philippines after the Second World War, having seen terrible devastation, I knew I wanted to help people. But at age 20, I didn't know how. A wise advisor at Loyola University in Chicago listened to me and told me to consider social work. I enrolled in the master's program at the University of Chicago, and I never looked back. I believe it is the finest profession in the world, and I am proud to have spent 59 years doing it. My first 20 years were in the trenches doing direct service, a very satisfying time of helping clients. Then I moved into administration, teaching, and research. The work closest to my heart has been the development and dissemination around the world of the person and environment system. I continue it today, having just finished the revision of the manual with the able collaboration of Maura O'Keefe. I'd like to thank the Santa Barbara NASW chapter for nominating me, and especially want to commend the efforts of Agnes Petersons. Now, those are Jim's words. I'd like to add a few. The NASW chapter in Santa Barbara, where we live now, came to Jim and said, we want to honor you. We'd like to give you a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Santa Barbara chapter. And Jim said, well, you can't do that. And they said, why? And he said, well, you already gave me one. So then they said, well, we'll see if we can get you a Lifetime Achievement Award from the state chapter. And he said, you can't do that. And they said, why? And they said, well, they already gave me one. So then they said, well, how about the Hall of Distinction? He said, you can't do that. And at this point, they were getting a little exasperated, I think. They said, why? And he said, I'm on the board of it. So they said, okay, we're gonna put this together and we're gonna send it in and let them figure it out. And figure it out they did, so here we are.
The next inductee is Maria McNabola. Dr. McNabola, and I hope I'm saying that correctly, was known for her ability to engage students and community-based field instructors as she worked with field agencies in Long Beach and other places, I believe. She received her BA in '46 and her MSW in 1950 from UC Berkeley. She then received a PhD in health planning and medical sociology from Brandeis. Her long, outstanding contributions were to the National Institute of Mental Health, and her work with community mental health programs have influenced social work practice and education in all of the institutions. She joined the faculty at California State University Long Beach in '85 and as it opened its innovative Master's Social Work program. And she was one of their pioneers in developing that program and their field work. She made important contributions to the National Institute of Mental Health, working with the National Community Mental Health Center programs, and teaching in the schools of social work at UCLA, CSU at Long Beach, Boston University, Catholic University, and Howard University. There's a long list of organizations in which she provided leadership, including the National Mental Health Association, Alliance for the Mentally Ill, Mental Health Association, National Women's Committee, National Organization of Women, and the National Women's Political Caucus. So we're very delighted to induct Marie McNabola. And I don't know if is anyone here from her family that is able to accept it. Well, let's welcome.
It's my honor and privilege to introduce Patricia Pickford to the 2008 Hall of Distinction for Social Work. Patricia Pickford graduated from UCLA during the 1950s. She spent over 4 decades as a social work practitioner and educator in the Central California region. And what a difference she made. She worked initially in the Fresno County Department of Social Services. From there, she became a faculty member at Fresno State in the Social Work Department. She was instrumental in beginning their undergraduate program in social work during the 1950s. Early in the 1960s, she was instrumental in starting the MSW program at Fresno State. So you could say that she was responsible for the education, the initial education and the beginning of the program at Fresno State, which has produced thousands of social workers who serve the San Joaquin Valley as well as California and the rest of the nation. Also while at Fresno State, she helped initiate the Women's Studies program as well as the gerontology program. She currently, is still working in the community after retirement in the early 1990s. She is instrumental in the development and the continuation of the Friendly Visitors program in Fresno, as well as continuing to serve on the university's Friendly Libraries Committee. She continues to be involved in the community and has made a difference and continues to make a difference. And today we have members of the Pickford family here today, and Jeff Pickford will say a few words.
Thank you very much for allowing members of Pat's family to be here to accept this award for her. I should tell you that she's back in Fresno. She had a slight health problem. She had made plans to be here, and just at the last minute she couldn't come under her doctor's advice. So she's deeply disappointed. I talked to her on the phone yesterday, and I can honestly say that she's somewhat angry that she's not here. But she is a very humble person, and I had a little trouble finding out exactly what this award was. So I had to do my own digging, but I found out, and this is tremendous, and I'm honored as her nephew to be here to accept this award for you. I should tell you that in reading her bio, it says in here that she helped to educate hundreds of students of social workers. I can tell you that when she left the classroom at Fresno State, her ability to educate didn't stop. All of us who are her nieces, her nephews, and members of her family have also been educated over the years and continue to get educated. Every opportunity that she has, she doesn't hold back. And I can say that I think most of us are probably a lot better people because of our aunt. And you refer to her tonight as Pat or Patricia. In our family, we call her Aunt Patty, affectionately. I can tell you she's our social worker for our family. All of us from her family have pretty much moved around the country because of our careers and marriages and et cetera. And most of us have faced, the normal problems you have in life, everything from financial problems to divorce, to death of a loved one. When those things happen, our Aunt Patty was always there, always, to help each and every one of us to get through life. So I think that, to me, would be the true definition of a social worker. So, not only in her professional career, but in her family. Briefly, as I read her bio tonight, I thought of two things. First of all, with me tonight are assorted nieces, nephews, grandnieces and nephews, friends and in-laws. With me also is my cousin Sherry, who is Patty's niece, and she related a story to me. When I was in kindergarten through the second grade, because of my parents' divorce, I lived with my grandparents. That would be my Aunt Patty's parents. And I shared a bedroom with her. I'd kind of forgotten about that. I was reminded tonight. She's managed to tell all of the family members, but me, that I was responsible for at least 13 colds that I brought home from school. So maybe I can make up for that a little bit tonight. And one more story that occurred to me as I was reading her bio. And she was at UCLA getting her master's in social work. My brother and I, who were just barely teenagers, came to Los Angeles for the president to visit her. And Patty did two things that I've never forgotten in my entire life. One, she took us to Disneyland. This was 1958. Disneyland, I believe, had only been open for 3 years. But more importantly to me, as an adamant sports fan, she took us to a baseball game with the Los Angeles Dodgers at the LA Coliseum. And as most of you know, this last week they played another game there in memory of that. So it's with appreciation as a member of her family and on behalf of her family that we accept this award. And I'm sure that Patty is still wishing that she could be with you tonight. So thank you very much.
My name is Janley Wong. I'm the Executive Director of the California Chapter of the National Association of Social Workers. We have 12,000 members in California and 150,000 members across the country. And we honor social workers. And tonight is a special night for us to honor social workers. It's my privilege and honor to speak about Beverly Yip. Who would have thought, not in San Francisco, not in Los Angeles, not in New York City, not in Chicago, but in San Diego, a multi-ethnic Asian social services organization could be created over a quarter of a century ago by Beverly Yip. And not just Asian, but also Pacific Islander. And not just Pacific Islander, but also Pan-Asian Pacific Islander. The concept is really incredible. It's respect for cultural diversity, it's respect for the many different groups that make up the Asian and Pacific Islander community, but it also says there's strength in association, there's strength in membership, and there's strength in a common cause for social justice. So it's so important that we recognize Beverly for her pioneering efforts. It's really important that we understand that she learned these ideas of community organization and social justice by being a social worker, by getting her master's in social work degree from San Diego State University, an excellent program. It's also important that we recognize that she mentored and produced a great generation of social workers. Several of them here tonight, Amy Okamura from San Diego, Naomi Ozawa from Los Angeles, and others, many others. So it is such a privilege for me to tell her story. Also, we have this legacy that continues because her organization now is much bigger, much more resources, producing many more great social workers, and the executive director of the Union of Pan-Asian Communities, UPAC. The organization she founded is here tonight, Margaret Penrose. And thank you, Margaret. But beyond all of that, Beverly was a wonderful family person. And you can tell that because her family members are here tonight, including her husband, Phil, as well as her son, Keith, and his wife, and 3 daughters, and her daughter, Janice, who is going to come up and accept this award on behalf of Beverly. Janice, come on up.
Well, Janley, thank you very much for all your hard work in nominating Mom. It's a tremendous honor, and I'm just the mouthpiece for the family. So thank you very much. She was a very visionary person to have put together you so eloquently described, a multinational organization to help aid Pan-Asian Pacific Islanders. It cuts across many communities, and it became a powerful network together. And that's the key. She was a fantastic leader, a very visionary leader, to have started this kind of organization essentially 40 years ago, of which there isn't another organization similar to it, as much as we'd like to model that organization and its success. But not only was she, I could go on forever. I just think the world of her. And I hope that, and I am honored to accept the award for the family. But I also want to recognize the individuals that made it happen with Mom. Amy, Mom wouldn't let Amy leave the organization until she had someone that could adequately take over Amy's responsibilities. Again, Margaret has continued the legacy of the organization and grown it to a much larger organization so that we can support the individuals, more individuals throughout Southern California. And additionally, what we do have in place, because it was so important to Mom, we have a scholarship fund in her name so that we could, because education and her degree in social work was important to her. It led to her success, led to her ability to network, and we believe it's important also, so we've continued that with the scholarship fund in her name. We just only wish that we could offer more scholarships. So I do want to thank the committee. It's a tremendous honor. Thank you for honoring all her efforts and work. And behind every visionary leader is a supportive family. So my father, her spouse, Phil, supported her throughout. In fact, she never really ever took a paycheck. It all went back into the organization. And her family, it was behind her. So thank you very much. Sorry, everyone.
Get this on video. Great.
Now it's even longer lasting.
Well, it's my pleasure to tell you a little bit about Maria Sardinas. She wasn't able to be with us this evening, but has some friends who are here in her stead. She is Professor Emeritus from San Diego State School of Social Work, where she worked for 23 years. She was a major force in the evolution of mental health, of the whole mental health system. Her focus was on psychosocial rehabilitation, and she was the first to teach this method in terms of both practice and philosophy in the state of California. She was a mentor to many, and still is actually. She helped to develop a number of programs around San Diego, including the Maria Sardinas Center, which is an adult outpatient mental health program, and the Institute of Chicano Affairs. She's been recognized a lot in her life for the many things that she has done, and deservedly so, and continues to be active in her retirement, as many of us know how that goes, retirement with active people. Mostly what she does now is lecture through an annual Maria Sardinas lecture series at the Maria Sardinas Behavioral Health Institute. So I'd like for her friend Jonathan to come on up and receive the award in her stead. You want to take
Thank you. It is an honor to be here. And by way of explanation, I really do consider myself Maria's family. Maria and my mother were best friends for 35, 40 years. My mother was a social worker. And so I've known Maria over much of my life. My children actually grew up calling my mother Grandma and her Grand Maria. I'm very pleased to be here in her stead. I talked to her this afternoon. She's very sorry not to be here. And she asked me what I was going to say, and I told her what I was going to say, and she did make a point of really saying, please tell them what an honor it is, and what a significant recognition it is. And I just like to say a few personal words, because my experience of Maria was a dynamo. Maria was so active throughout the community, and she did so many things, and she dedicated her entire life to social work and to helping other village people. And she was brilliant at her career, and she continues to be. My experience of her was largely at the dinner table, hearing discussions, talking about things as I was growing up and as I became an adult and entered into professional life myself. And those discussions and that intelligence and that acuity, but mostly that dedication to social work and to helping people, is something that I've carried with me and that has been with me in my life, and is undoubtedly the experience of all her students and its people throughout the community of San Diego. So on her behalf, and we talked about this a number of times, I did everything I could to bring her up here, but her health just wasn't up to it. But on her behalf, I really do want to say what an honor it is, and how much she thanks you, and how much I thank you for giving her this recognition for the life that she's given. And I also want to say, in a personal, having grown up with social workers, and with my mother and with Maria, what a remarkable profession it is, and how important it is, and how much importance it's been in my life. Really to thank all of you for what you've done in your lives and for honoring Maria in this way. So thank you very much.
I'd like to ask Frances Feldman to come to the podium, and while she's making her way up here to present our next two inductees, I want to tell you that Frances herself is an inductee, one of our living legends. Many of you know her, and it's always my privilege to be in the same spot with her. I went to school at USC, and Frances Feldman was my professor. I took every class she taught in both my master's and my PhD program, so I'm especially proud that we still continue to know each other and see each other. So here's Frances.
You can see how well I did when you hear Monica talk. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to say a few words about Maurice Hamovitch. I'm not going to tell you a great deal because you don't really need a magnifying glass. It is small, but I think you can get from the statements that are on the board, some basic things. And I want to say a couple of things that are not included in that material. Maurice Hamovitch came to the USC in 1951, I think it was. I may be wrong on the date, but it's close enough. And we became very good friends. We worked in the same field. His interest was in history as well as in administration and research. But he didn't confine his activities to working in the School of Social Work, where he was a great influence, even before he became dean in the school. He started as his research with children at City of Hope, and was working with parents on how to deal with the fact of the bereavement which they expected and which did come to pass. But he went beyond that to working with gerontology, which is not in this material here, so this is something newer to tell you about. The first institution that focused entirely on education in gerontology, an interdisciplinary one, was at USC. And Maurice became one of the two who shared the directorship of that when it started. It became quite an important institution, and it is today. And a good deal of that is due to the fact that he made contributions in mental health of the aging and research in the aging. And I can tell you about a time that we went to Kiev for the first international conference, but it was focused on gerontology. And he and my husband both were speakers at that meeting, which had brought people from all around the world. And they were quite surprised that we had such an institution that would focus entirely on interdisciplinary education for people interested in gerontology. Some people had a little difficulty following what he was saying in English, and they were astonished to have him then translate into French, which he spoke very fluently. The result of that was that several of those people then came to California to see what was going on here, and it was because of the influence of Maurice Hamovitch that they did that. His writings remain very pertinent today, and I think there are here students, that is people who were his students, and will appreciate his contributions, not just to social work, but to the broader field of mental health. Hannah? Hannah is... He was already embarked on his very important career in social work education when he met Hannah, who also was in the field of social work, and it's a great pleasure to be able to tell you that he is awarded. And I'm going to walk for the door because I have to come back.
Good, thank you.
I'm late.
I have a confession to make. I was always jealous of Frances because Maurice and Frances talked almost every evening. So it was like, what's going on here? Oh, and they had the same birthday. I want to thank the committee for honoring Maurice and our family. And there are so many things that I could say about Maurice. He was a very unique person. He was very fair, very understanding, and I see some of you shaking your heads and agreeing. He had a way of making you understand with never putting you down. He had a love for the School of Social Work. When he retired for the first time, because he retired many times. One of the things that he wanted most was to have a research library. And that became a very important part of his life. It started out with just a little room, and many different deans had to keep supporting it, and now it's a beautiful, beautiful research center. Maury believed in, he believed in practice, and he believed in research. And the library that turned into the research center is a wonderful tribute to him. I want to thank his family who came up from San Diego, and my grandson who came from Hollywood, I think. I want to thank all the friends that came to support this evening, and I think that you're all wonderful. Oh, and one other thing I did want to say was that some of you came up to me this evening and said and told me how important Maury was in their lives. And that meant a lot. Thank you very much. Pleasure of telling you also about Helen Northen, whom I think many of you knew. Again, I'm not going to repeat what's on the board that you can read for yourself or on the internet where all of this will appear. Helen Northen came to USC in the middle 50s. She was a social group worker, but not the kind that people really thought about in terms of group work, that they led a group and that was it. She had a very strong conviction that everybody dealt with groups in one form or another, and that therefore all social workers, not just those who wanted to become social group workers, needed to know about groups. And so she introduced the concept of social work for groups. Let me say that over again. She introduced the concept of social group work for everybody who was in the field of social work. This was an important innovation nationally, not just in California. And it led to another important development, and that is that schools of social work should have, as a first year, a general program for everybody in the school, which would include work with groups. Otherwise, they had ignored that part of the education. And that the second year of the curriculum would be a specialization. We called it a concentration. It took several years before this idea of a concentration in the second year and work with groups would be taught in the first year to everybody. But it then became a national arrangement, and I think there's no school in the country that does not follow that process now. And this was the innovation of Helen Northen. Again, many of you knew her. She died just a little more than a year ago. She had revised during her retirement several of her books that are used still in many schools as textbooks. And when she died, she was working on a new one. We hope to have the materials that she developed come into our archives. I'm sorry that no member of her family could be here. They're all too far away, but they know about this.
Actually, I read a card that came from her family in lieu of them being able to be with us. We thank you so much for your honoring our Aunt Helen Northen as an outstanding California social work leader and inducting her into the Social Work Hall of Distinction. We wish we could be there in person, but we are thinking of you all. Helen would be so pleased. In fact, somehow we think she is pleased. And that was from Betty and Dick Lyons for her niece and husband. So I'm going to ask Ellen to come up. Those are our inductees for this year, and hopefully we'll see you.
It's a wonderful group, and I want to thank all of you for being here. I also got a couple of special thanks. One is to Suzanne Dworak-Peck for her special contribution to making this event possible. We also received a nice contribution from the Association of the California Deans and Directors of Social Work. And of course, the Social Work Archives. So between them, all of them, we were able to make this happen, and the contributions that many of you have made. I also want to encourage you to go to the internet or get one of your grandchildren to go to the internet. All you have to do is Google Social Work Hall of Distinction, and it pops up, and you can read any of these things that are on the posters. It's on there. And then if you think of someone you think should be on there that isn't, you better get in touch with us and get some nomination in so that we can get their information and put them in. So we're asking for your help in this as we continue with this program. So thank you for coming, and hope we see you next time around.